Hi there, I'm James Osborne, the co-founder of the Recruitment Network, and this is the TRN Podcast. Every week, we unpack the strategies, the technologies, the processes and mindsets fueling today's top-performing recruitment agencies. We take a look behind the scenes of some great recruitment businesses, we listen to the real-life stories of those who have built those businesses, and we learn from some of the industry's greatest thought leaders to help you become both future fit and future relevant. So let's begin with this next episode of the TRM podcast. So firstly, we've got Justin Hillier, CEO of Recruiter Insider, one of the TRM partners and a very popular partner as well across TRM. So Justin, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
We'll see if you're still a friend after the Ashes starts in a few days' time.
And also George Zitko, who is CEO of the Zitko Group. Hi, George. How are you?
Very well, thank you, James.
So guys, first, thanks for joining us. George, can you just give a quick 30 seconds of the Zitko Group, just so people know who you are, what you guys do?
Sure. So we've become the largest talent provider for the global security industry. And when I say security industry, I mean anything to do with CCTV access control, intruder alarms, fire alarms, biometrics, ANPR, all that kind of tech that protects life and assets.
Perfect. So not just those Ringo things that on your doorbell type stuff.
No, that's low end of the market. But no, we're lucky. We're lucky enough to support big integrators, big tech, and as I'm sure you guys know, and many of the people on this webinar know, tech, data centers, security, all of these things, IT, networks, cloud, AI. It's a growth area at the moment. So we're fortunate to be in that space.
Yeah, I love reading on the news the other day as well, by the way, about how these there's a new initiative going out. I don't know if it's a government initiative or not, I doubt it, but where they're actually getting people now to own little mini data centers in their sheds.
Yeah.
And the heat from the data center is going to pay their energy bills and heat the house. I mean, how cool is that? I love it.
That's very cool.
How the world turns, right? How the world turns. Justin, tell us a bit more about Recruiter Insider.
We measure the candidate and client experience very specifically throughout the hiring process and post-placement. So it gives an agency an insight into what parts of the process a consultant might be doing well, might need improvement on, and we actually link all of that back to how that impacts fill rates. Hence why I'm here.
Excellent. Very good. Fantastic. Okay, well, let's get straight into the fill rate question then. And I think, as I say, one of the metrics that we're looking at across businesses to identify whether they're as efficient as they could be is their fulfill rate. How many jobs are going unfilled and so on and so forth. If I'll pose this to Justin, we'll kick off with you as you last spoke. So what would you suggest are some of the main reasons that jobs go unfilled in the first place?
Well, I'd say the first thing, surprisingly, it's not the market. I have a client who actually says to his team, we don't need more jobs. We need to fill more of the jobs that we have. So going out and getting more jobs after more jobs after more jobs actually doesn't help you, because now you've diluted your focus and attention and your efficiency on how well you can fill the ones you've already got. So less is actually more. The data shows us that, and I'll get to that, obviously later in the chat. But the most overlooked part of what is going wrong with filling jobs is actually consultants and or the agency thinking that they're delivering a strong process and sharing with the candidate that here is what the process is going to be. Actually, firstly, sharing that information of what it looks like, but then sticking to that plan as well. And obviously, the client has a part to play in this, but the consultant has a massive part to play in this and actually collecting that information in the first place and then sharing it to allow the candidate to qualify themselves in or out. So we often say that we are running a hiring process, yet I could probably count on, I'll be really fair and say both hands, the number of consultants I've ever spoken to that actually run it as a process and not just, I need to follow up with this person now. They're not sticking to, I guess, a project plan of sorts. So it largely is about running a proper process, and the data shows us, and obviously we'll get to this in a bit, that by doing that actually can double your fill rates.
But you touched on an interesting point there, because we talk a lot to people about their relationships with their clients, and actually the process is a two-way process, right? So unless the clients are playing ball, then we could be following a process. If the clients don't do their bit, that ain't going to work, right? So clients, I suppose one of the questions I want to ask you, and I'll post this to both of you, but is that piece around, are recruiters actually setting out clear and deliberate performance metrics, KPIs around the process with their clients once they brought a job on? So this is what I'm going to do over the course of the next 10 days to fill your job for you, Mr. or Mrs. Client. These are the 10 things I need you to do as well. Are we doing that? Are you seeing that happening?
So I'll pick up that, James, because I think it's worth probably for your watchers to give a bit of context. So and maybe they can compare with their own businesses, because I'd imagine you have an array of people watching this. As an agency, we do a mixture. We do contract perm, we do RPO, an RPO light managed service. So we do a real mix of recruitment processes, going back to your point, and we do that in different countries and in different divisions. And to give your viewers an idea, our kind of fill rate now across the entire business for perm roles is 86%. And we've done a lot of work to focus, as Justin was saying, on quality over quantity to enhance that. But going back to the question and your point about the setting out the process, I think the most underestimated thing in this is the relationship that you have with your customer and what they understand you're going to deliver. Because obviously you've got contingent, you've got exclusive, you've got retained, you've got partnership-based approaches. And the data, absolutely, everyone knows that, you know, contingent fill rates are at the bottom end of the scale and partnership fill rates are at the top end of the scale. So going back to the most underestimated thing, the better relationship you have with your customer, the better chance you have of delivering a true process, a true recruitment campaign that isn't necessarily based on outcome, because the customer can fill a role in any one of those variety of ways, but it's based on their experience to fill that role. And I think that's the bit that gets most overlooked. As Justin was saying, too many recruitment companies have a volume-based approach, which we tried 3 years ago, by the way, because we felt like the income was better, and not enough of a partnership and true consultancy-based approach, which benefits everyone.
But does it really matter though, George? Because ultimately, if the client just wants the job, they want the person starting in the role, do they really care about the service? Do they really care about the relationship? Do they want all that?
You know the answer to that, James. So if we go to a restaurant, we know we're going to get fed. Do we care how the food's served? Do we care, you know, whether the service is great from the staff? Of course we do. And so customers and clients are no different. Now, some may still go down the low rate, high volume, multi-agency approach. There may be something you can't do with that. TAs, PSLs, all of these things promote a multi-agent approach. But going back to the relationship, if you have a strong relationship with your customer, and you are able to articulate the benefit of an exclusive or partnership-based approach, which then allows you as the service provider to talk through things like process, to talk through things like KPIs, to talk through things like expectations, SLAs, better experience, then you'll find more customers will turn around and say, okay, how much does that cost? It's going to cost an arm and a leg. And when you deliver the bomb that it basically costs exactly the same as a contingent approach, but they get a much better experience, people start to listen. So yeah, absolutely, customers care about this, but not enough of our side, the recruitment side, are articulating that and highlighting the benefits of a better experience.
And let's never forget as well that if you do deliver a better experience, two things also happen. Number one is that you actually, you know, if I go to a restaurant and the food's served, I'm choosing to take time off to go to that restaurant. Whereas, you know, if in business, this is time my hiring managers are taking to work with the agency. So if I'm wasting time with the agency, that has a physical cost. So if I can look at how much time that's cost, I can work out the value of that. Similarly, if you're doing a better job that rather than just placing a body, but placing the best candidate, the most engaged candidate, the most qualified candidate, then that's going to impact your retention rates. It's going to impact your engagement rates, the speed to delivery rate, and all that sort of good stuff. So there's lots of benefits for the customers, and you know that, and that's why I obviously purposely asked that question.
Well, James, it impacts the fill rates enormously. So there's one question that we specifically ask on process of the candidate at the first stage when we collect feedback from them, and it's explaining the interview process and timeframes. Now, the consultants who nail this question actually have about a 70 to 75% fill rate. Those who don't, it's half that. So making sure you're getting a process in place in conjunction with the client to actually share that with the candidate and then follow that doubles your fill rates. I mean, if that's not enough for everyone to turn around and go, oh my God, we need to make sure we have a process in place and actually follow it and collect that information from the client. Because I often ask consultants, are you asking the client how many steps in their process? Pretty basic question. Who's involved in those steps? Is it the HR manager, the sales director, a team member, et cetera, et cetera? There's one question I find they always miss out on. Do any of those people between now and then and your ideal start date have any holidays? Are they going to a conference for a few days? Are they going to be out of action in that period where we're planning on all of this? Because typically that's what also throws out the time to hire and pushes things out, and that process changes, and that candidate slips through the cracks to somewhere else because we weren't aware of it. We simply didn't ask the question. But getting that process right and being able to share it with the candidate, it's pretty simple. It'll double your fill rates alone.
That's really interesting, and it is very simple, obviously. And again, that's a big part of these things, is just talk about some of the simple basic steps that some people have forgotten to do or not doing. The Justin, if you were to put in order, there's three people involved in the process. There's the recruiter, there's the candidate, and there's the client. When you look at all your data, there we go, and how if you were to put them in order based on where the biggest issues lying, would you say it stems with the recruiter not doing their job properly, the candidate just changing their mind and going off and they're almost like window shopping, or the client not playing their part? What would the order be if you had to put them in order?
I'm not going to put them in order. The data, there you go, back at you, is going to put them in order. And this is directly from all of the information that we collect. Okay. So it's actually the recruiter not doing their job properly. The biggest gap in the process is clarity. So it comes to the recruiter first. It's the hiring manager second. We also have candidates review the hiring manager after they've interviewed with them. So we're having that insight into that part of the process. The hiring manager, when they provide a great experience at interview, has a 20% impact on fill rates. So a 20% uplift on fill rates, whereas the consultant has about 60%. So it is 3 times as much. It's quite a big difference. The consultant is the person who's paying them. If you think about it from a common sense perspective, the consultant's paying middleman between the candidate and the client. They're the only person that's on both sides here. They're the one who's driving the ship forward, should be running the process. So it's not surprising when I see the data come back through that it's 3 times more impactful that the consultant is having on fill rates than the hiring manager or the candidate. You're leading them down the path.
So George, running a business like yours, when you've got a bunch of consultants out there, what are you doing to make sure they're on track from this? And I suppose as much around they're following the process, they're following the activity. And I suppose that, to be fair though, that obviously changes as well per client, because you're going to have some, I know for a fact, George, you've got some clients who almost not dictate, but they determine a little bit what the process is going to be based on their internal structures. So how are you getting recruiters to follow the right process? Make sure it's the right process, follow it. And then how are we making sure that the activity and the process they're following is actually, I suppose, turning out the other end a good result, good performance activity?
So the latter part is measuring everything. Being really, really granular with the data. So, using tools like Recruiter Insider for transparency. We use Recruiter Insider for exactly that reason. We look at every data point through the whole candidate and customer experience and look at ways that we can improve. Because as Justin says, it is common sense. Every business owner in this webinar will know that they've probably got a desk and a customers and candidates that if they put a great consultant in will make 250 to 500,000, and a poor consultant will make 100. And that's because the consultant is in control of that. So it is simple. The better consultant, the better process you have, the more placements they'll make, the better experience your customers will have. So we measure as much as we can. And then, of course, made a note of it, we measure some key performance metrics around time to fill, conversion, and we use our data set to measure everything, even the gaps between CV send to when the first interview comes, interview conversion into second interview into offers into placements. So we take a generic view of how many CVs do we send to get one placement, and then we can look at everything through that supply process to improve things. And again, in preparation of this webinar, going back to the best consultant point, I asked our team to look at some differences between our highest billers and our lowest billers. And again, it comes down to those things. There's a simple ends, it's some send more CVs, right? Very simple stuff. But throughout the process, the best consultants have the shortest times in between the stages. They have the highest conversion ratios. And when you look at it, they are, as Justin says, the most thorough. They're the ones that will qualify the customer. They will engage with the candidate. They will ensure that simple things like Justin's saying, which Recruiter Insider measures, are we passing on the correct job details to the candidate? Are we briefing the client in the correct way? Are we ensuring that both candidate and client are well prepared for the interview? The candidate's read the company information pack. The client knows everything they need to know for the candidate. All these little points throughout the process in today's market and in a candidate short market like we live in are absolutely critical to just turning the dial up on consultant performance. So we bang on about it, we measure it, we reward it, we look to continually improve it. And that's how those numbers have shifted from 3 years ago, where we were filling 35% of our roles across the business, to where we are now. And I will say this as well. Everyone's happier. Everyone's happier. Clients are happier. Candidates get a much better experience, which benefits the customer as well. And our consultants are much happier because they're doing valuable, rewarding work. They're not just, spraying and praying.
That was going to be my question, actually, is because there are some recruiters who will naturally do this out of a sense of pride of what they do. They want to deliver a celebrity level service to their customers. They want to, they really take pride in that piece as much as anything else. Are you seeing that those people who generally are like that in your business just do that? Or are they now doing it because we're going, here, guys, look, here's the data. It tells you if you do 3 of these and 6 of those, you're going to get more placements, you make more money.
So it's a bit of both. Obviously, it's partly set by the business. We've always had a partnership-based approach, but absolutely the people we've had it. We've had people doing one job, we've had the same people doing the other, and 9 times out of 10, everyone prefers providing true value to the customer, right? And without getting too heavy about the future, consultancy is where it's at. Partnership is where it's at. If you're operating a fairly transactional approach to your recruitment, that may be something to look at for the next 2 to 3 years, when really every customer we're working with is looking for more. They want more advice, they want more consultancy, they want more support, they want to spend less time doing their recruitment. So, you've got to be looking at ways to enhance the experience, not just to improve your fill rates, but also, I'd say, to protect your businesses.
Interesting. So every time I talk to recruiters, they're going, we're brilliant at what we do, we love what we do, we're excellent at what we do, we deliver a great service, etc. Then we still have that issue out there with the end user basically going, yeah, I'm just not getting what I want to expect out of recruiters. They're not delivering to me. I was delivering a workshop for one of the members actually down in the New Forest last week, because they were running a breakfast event, and I said I'll be the speaker for it. And these are all end user customers, HR, and that sort of stuff. And again, their experience of what they were getting wasn't quite potentially aligned with maybe what the recruiters think they were giving necessarily. Justin, your experience, again, looking at all the people that you speak to, is there a mixed match here? Is there a gap between what we are thinking is good and what our customers think is good?
There is. I think you nailed it in what you said, but coming at it from another angle, every agency you spoke to say that they deliver a great experience, they're great at what they do, blah, blah, blah. Who's telling them that?
How do they measure?
They are. They're telling themselves that they're great at what they do. Now, I'm not surprised by that one little bit, right? You want to be confident and and sure of yourself, absolutely. But what you've just also said is the candidates and the hiring managers, etc., are not singing to the same tune. So I actually went, and here's a fascinating thing. I did a little bit of research recently, which is a bit of an eye opener, but didn't surprise me one little bit. I went to 100 agency websites and I looked for 2 words on their homepage: expert or specialist. What percentage of agencies on their homepage do you think had the words expert or specialist?
I'm going to say over 90%.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot, George. Not sure. I can't remember everyone's. It was 80%. So 80% of agencies are going out to market saying expert or specialist. Now, if you think of this from a pitch perspective, if everyone is standing in front of that one HR manager and saying, hey, we are the experts, next one comes in, we are experts, we are specialists, or we're specialists and experts, it's now not an effective message whatsoever. So everyone has this perception, or their own perception, that we are great at what we do, but telling yourself that isn't actually what you need to be going out to market with. You need to be going out to market with what do your candidates and clients say about you, because that is what people will actually engage with far greater. And then you'll understand really where your gaps are. Because there's a number of key behaviors that we look at that the top consultants are nailing. And George mentioned one before, that whole volume thing. If you want to be transactional, the very best consultants do 1/3 of the amount of CV sends. They qualify more. They're a bit more stringent on who they put forward. So they're being far more productive and efficient. So yeah, I think it's largely, we need to actually listen to our customers by measuring it. The old saying goes, you can't improve what you don't measure.
Yeah, but George, to George's point though, I mean, if what's the Zitko USP? and I'm not talking for you, George, and obviously I know your business very well, but surely walking into a customer and basically we have an 86% fulfill rate, and that in itself is a USP, right? Because that's proprietary to you, that's what you do, and actually basically if you want the job filled, we can fill it, so it's what you're sort of saying. That in itself is a USP, surely.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. Nice.
For reference, yes, it is. Yeah, of course. And we've been on the journey, right? We can, going back to the point about understanding the value of selling a retained service, selling a partnership service, all of these things, to be able to sit in front of a customer and not just take industry, standards, but say, here's our own data. Here's what we know when we're working a multi-agent contingent thing. We ourselves, despite best efforts, because the focus is on speed, not quality, we might fill 30% of those roles. Actually, if we work exclusively, we can fill 86% of the roles, and we're going to fill, by understanding you more, we're going to deliver a better service and not charge you more for doing it. It does link into that partnership-based approach, as you say, with our own data, with our own metrics, with our own understanding of our market and what we can do within it. So it's a bit of both. Obviously, it's partly set by the business. We've always had a partnership-based approach, but absolutely the people we've had it. We've had people doing one job, we've had the same people doing the other, and 9 times out of 10, everyone prefers providing true value to the customer, right? And without getting too heavy about the future, consultancy is where it's at. Partnership is where it's at. If you're operating a fairly transactional approach to your recruitment, that may be something to look at for the next 2 to 3 years, when really every customer we're working with is looking for more. They want more advice, they want more consultancy, they want more support, they want to spend less time doing their recruitment. So you've got to be looking at ways to enhance the experience, not just to improve your fill rates, but also, I'd say, to protect your businesses.
As always, guys, this is really great to catch up. George, you can now go and hang out with some proper people in your suits and all your smart stuff. Justin, great to see you. Sorry about
Lovely
the
to see you guys.
and another loss for the Australians. And thank you for everyone who's joined us today on the call. Hope you found that useful. We'll obviously share some notes and some further stuff. Let's do reach out to Justin if you're interested in Recruiter Insider. Highly recommended. Do follow George and what the guys are doing at Zitko. It's a great business. I know it personally, who are doing some brilliant stuff. So to me, it's definitely leading the way in some of these areas in particular. So definitely worthwhile keeping a track of what they're up to. Other than that, have a fantastic rest of the day. Keep focusing on this productivity revolution that we're in, and squeezing more out of what you've already got. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all. Take care. And that's a wrap for this episode of the TRN podcast. Thank you for listening. And make sure you grab the free episode toolkit. All the links are in the description. And click follow in your podcast app so you can get notified of our next episode. If you want to get more out of your business and your people, then please unlock 30 days from our platform, TRN World, for free. And help yourself to all our training content, our guides, our templates, and peer insights. You can get started at trnworld.com/trial. And finally, if you found this episode of the TRN podcast of use, please share it with your network and tag TRN on any socials with your takeaways. Otherwise, message us directly if we can help in any way. We do reply to every question. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on the next TRN podcast.